Shalom. I'm Rabbi Nathan Davidovich, speaking to you on behalf of the webyeshiva.org, speaking to you from Efrat, Israel. I'm going to talk about this week's Torah reading, Vayakhel, and talk about how it ties in to what is going on in our country, Israel, at the moment. Tuesday morning, early in the morning, Israel resumed the war which had been on hold against Hamas for their refusal to release the remaining 59 hostages that they have been holding in horrible conditions. You would think that at a time when Israel is at war, the country would be united and the country would be in support of winning this war and getting the return of the hostages. But what happened? What happened after the people realized war had started again? And even before, there were great protests. People were calling each other names, calling for either for the government to step down or everything. There was great strife, great division between Am Yisrael, between the people of Israel here living in Israel. This Parsha talks to that and tells us that the source of all blessing, including being victorious over our enemies, is our own unity. Parsha Vayakhel starts. It says, Vayakhel Moshe es kol adas b'nei Yisrael. Moses gathered all of the congregation of Israel. V'omer aleim, and he said to them, Elu hadvorim asher tziva Hashem lasos osem. This is what God commanded you to do. And this is, of course, this particular Torah reading is going to be about the Mishkan, about the construction of the tabernacle. But the language, Vayakhel, is interpreted, the Chedush Yarim says, Yeshivat B'nai Yisrael, B'tzivasa, living together of the children of Israel. Chada b'chados. That's the unity. He says, these are the things that God commanded us. And then it goes on to, the very next sentence starts talking about Shabbat. 6 days you should do your work, and the seventh day will be Shabbat. And then it says, Lo sevaru eish. Lo sevaru eish b'chol moshvosechem. The Chassam Sofer says that what is happening here is that through Shabbos, through the observance of Shabbos, all of the days and all of the work of your week is blessed. But in order to do that, in order to strengthen the possibility of getting this blessing from God, not only on Shabbos, but by extension, on everything you do during the week, he says, below Matzah Kadosh Baruch Hu Kli B'chazek Bracha Ela Hashalom. God does not find a vessel that can receive the blessing of Shalom, of peace, unless there is peace between Bnei Israel. And the Kli Yakar, 17th century commentator, he talks about this and he says, why is peace so important? He says, Ki ein adam dar im nachash bechtifos achas. He said, a person cannot live with a snake, a deadly poisonous snake in a basket in front of him, in one dwelling. And Kli Yakar goes on to point out that when we're making the Mishkan, the tabernacle, that was a place of unity for all the children of Israel. And all the tribes, the 12 tribes of Israel, up until the time the Torah was given, were fighting with one another over various things. And they finally came together when the Torah was given. And with the building of the Mishkan, Torah says, "Asuli mikdash v'shachanti b'socham." You should make for me a tabernacle, and I will dwell in your midst, in the midst of every one of us. In other words, we are all dwelling in this tabernacle of God. And what the Kli Yakar says is, if we're going to be dwelling together, we can't have strife. Strife is like a poisonous snake. We can't have fights together, but we have to live together and in peace and harmony. And it goes on. The Torah says on the word Vayakhel. Vayakhel means unity, bringing us together. And how do we know that the unity is important for us when we're battling our enemies on the battlefield as we are right now? We can learn that from what we just learned and just read in the Megillat Esther on Purim, just last week, this past week, when Haman was exposed as the wicked person that he was, and Esther was able to convince the king, King Achashverosh, to let the Jews defend themselves. But what did Esther say? First, when she heard about the decree from Mordechai, that the decree of Haman was to annihilate all the Jewish people, wherever they were, in all of the 127 provinces of King Achashverosh, she said to Mordechai, Lech kenos es kol ha-Yehudim hanimtzaim b'Shushan. Gather together, unify all the Jews together, and let them fast for 3 days and scream to God to avert this decree. And then after Haman was exposed and Achashverosh was convinced that he would give the Jews the power to defend themselves, just as to explain why that was needed, why couldn't he just revoke it? They had a law that once the king signed the decree, which he had already signed against the Jews, he couldn't revoke it. So all he could do is give the Jews power to defend themselves. So it says further in the Megillah, Asher nasna melech haYehudim asher b'chol ir va'ir. He was commanded to give to every Jew, to tell every Jew in every city, li'kael, to gather together. The same word as in Vayakhel in our Parsha, v'lamod al nafsham, to stand together and defend themselves, lahashmid al-hareg, ulahabed, to destroy and to kill and to wipe out all of our enemies. Only through unity. That was done in unity then. We want to be victorious over our enemies now. We are living in a difficult, that's even an understatement, difficult situation. We can understand the frustration of people, the fear of people as to what's going to happen to the hostages. But the way to solve the problem is not by being angry with one another, not by splitting the country apart. This applies everywhere. United we stand. United we stand. God will help us stand united. But if we're divided, chas v'shalom, God forbid, we can fall. So my message to all of us is let's each do our own part to stop the hatred, to stop the fighting with our fellow Jew. And let's all come together. We have one purpose. We want to survive here in the beautiful land that God has given us. To do that, we need Vayekhel. We shouldn't light a fire of strife, but we should be together. Thank you for listening on behalf of the webyeshiva.org. I wish everybody a wonderful Shabbat, and may we hear only good news. Shabbat Shalom.